Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So, this game is going to be starting this week's analysis against our friend Aron. So, let's get started. I think this was a good game till the very end, so let's get to it. E4, E6, and now D4, B6. So I'm pulling out once again a version of the Owens defense, right? I think I love to play this against our fellow friends. Knight f3, bishop b4. Once again, I'm threatening taking on e4 because this knight is pinned. Our friend Aron misses it. Oh, again. Bishop d2, take, and bishop takes e4. So what I would have done here is I would have played bishop takes c3, because regardless if bishop takes e4, white has a good try, per se, or white has a trick. It probably doesn't work, but what I can say from experience is sometimes it fools people. So white will play d5. And the main idea behind the move d5 is, of course, to um, secondarily disrupt the bishop from going back, but at the same time opening up another diagonal, right? So this is the main purpose. This is the secondary purpose. So here, black would have to play knight f6 to defend against this pawn. Pawn takes, f takes, and now there could be a variety of moves. Bishop to b5, bishop to d3. I think it's all okay. Like, even though white might be down a pawn, white has pretty much very decent compensation due to the fact that, the pieces are well developed. And although I would say that black still is very comfortable here, getting the pawns out, getting the knight out, white has a chance, right? If we look in the game, bishop takes e4, bishop to b7. Now I could have easily played bishop takes d3 here, and pawn takes d3, knight f6. I could have castled, played d5, c5, brought my knight out. I could have done all that. But the reason I didn't do that is because I believe that my bishop has potential, right? And if you believe in your bishop, then you're okay. Bishop b7, knight f6, d6. So now I'm setting up this sort of pawn structure, and I think sometimes it's very important that you take care of your pawn structure. Now, I like to say that sometimes doubled pawns are annoying, but they're also sometimes a good thing. And doubled pawns in this position for black, there are none. So it's important for black now to maintain this structure and just like solidify it. Rook e1, castles, and now c4. And I think this does present the idea that white can play c5, intending pawn takes, and if pawn ever takes, the rook can take the bishop. So I play knight b to d7, just reinforcing, this so the knight can take on c5. So h3 happens. I think this is interesting. I'm not sure if h3 is completely necessary, since there really is no knight g4 to prevent. So what I would suggest is, instead of playing h3, I would go with maybe bringing this bishop. I don't know, bishop to c3 maybe. I'm not sure, maybe like knight to g5 and knight to e4. But I kind of felt like h3 wasn't the most purposeful move. It's okay, per se, but it may not be the best. So c5 happened. And here my first reaction was, what happens after bishop to f4? So when I looked at this move at first, I was like, ugh, this is kind of scary, right? I would have to play d5. And if d5 happened, then there's bishop to d6. Because if rook e8, there might be pawn takes c5. And then if knight takes c5, bishop takes, and pawn takes, and rook takes bishop. Right? So I can't do that. I'm just like, it's a little bit unpleasant. So I was thinking queen to b8. And the reason that is because after d takes c5, I want to play the move e5. And after e5, bishop g5, I can always consider e4, right? But in this case, there's c6 and bishop knight to d4. That's very complicated to see, but it is a move. So then in this case, I would probably play d takes c5, I think, or maybe h6, I don't know. Or I might just play e4. I don't know. I kind of feel like e4 is tricky because it's not natural for someone to play c6, right? And spot this knight d4 idea, attacking the c6 square. So let me explain it to you. So e4, c6, and black is threatening two pieces, my bad, and white is threatening two pieces. So I take, but now white gets loose. Now once again, I'm threatening the bishop, but white is threatening a very important piece. So I play bishop b7, and after bishop f1, I would play d5. And I think at this point, when I look at the position, white has a decent amount of counterplay, right? I wouldn't say that white is completely out of the game, but what I would say is that white has enough to brew a storm and not screw it up. So this obviously didn't happen in the game, but I played. So here in the game, d takes c5 happened. And to me, I was very relieved because I saw bishop f4 and I was very uncertain of what I was going to do. But this makes it much easier because I get to play knight takes c5. And the benefit about this is I get to play d5, and there really is no way for white to really break through without attacking this knight. So bishop c3 happens now. And here I looked at the possibility of e5, e4. But I think the reason why I didn't choose e5 was because of this move knight to d2. And I was like, I can't really march e4 because white has too many attackers on e4. So if e4, bishop takes f6, queen takes, and all of a sudden white has just enough pieces to attack e4. So what did I choose instead? And I know you might have all fixated on that yawn, but that's okay. So instead, I decided, there's e5 and there might be d5, but I want to take it slow, right? I want to be sure that I'm prepared. It's like what your pawn breaks are like babies, you need to prepare all this equipment to let them survive, right? You can't just give them the hard mode at the very start. You have to give them the foundation, the setting blocks, right? So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just preparing. I'm bringing my rook over. I'm looking calm and I'm looking sharp. Bishop takes f6. So here's what I would say is the mistake. Now, I can understand that knight to e4 looks threatening. However, I think that after knight to e4, this bishop still has plenty of squares, right? Bishop to d4, bishop to b4, bishop to b2. And believe it or not, I feel like, even though this knight can come to e4 and it looks extremely powerful, the bishop on c3 is more powerful than it looks. Because the c3 square, if the knight were to get there, would fork the queen and rook. And at the same time, if this bishop were gone and this queen got to c3, right, then there would be a lot of attacking on these pieces. So in a sense, this bishop is playing both a very active role and foreshadows a defensive role as well, right? So it's defending all these squares. And these squares are important, so don't sacrifice the bishop yet. But our friend did. So after bishop takes, queen takes, now knight d4. I was like, okay, interesting, because queen takes d4 leads to bishop takes, king takes, and queen takes queen. So obviously I don't want to do that. So I know that discovery, and I call it the Ashleen because I remember when my brother was playing chess, he encountered an opponent who did the same thing to him. He took what he thought was a free piece, and then bishop takes h7 came on the board, and the queen was gone. So that's why I call it the Ashleen. So I played king h8, avoid the check, right? And now queen h, not quite. I was thinking queen h5, but knight b3 comes first, right? And in the moment, I remember instinctively saying, knight to a4. I need to get to c3, right? That's why that is the whole purpose of getting the queen to f6, and just the bishop is gone now, right? So it gives me opportunity. But instead I took a step back and I said, I don't want to go for such cheap tricks. I feel like after knight to a4, white would move the queen to g4, the knight would come to c3, and although I might get a pawn, I don't feel like I'd get my money's worth of it. So I say, okay, I'm going to bring my rook to c8, and if you bring your knight here, I'm going to activate my rook, I'm going to swing it to the king side. So then queen h5 came, attacking the pawn, right, and producing a checkmate. So then I said g6, queen h6, and now knight to d7, because I want to reroute my knight to e5, because I want to attack c4, but I might also want to play something like knight f3 and go for this battery on g2. Rook to e3. I think this is a very interesting move. It brings for maybe a foreshadowing of knight f3, and also it just encourages white to double up. Knight e5, and now rook g3. I think this is also very interesting. Playing the defensive role, but also at the same time, maybe going on the attack. So as a precautionary measure, I know I didn't have to, I played queen g7, queen h4, and now f5. Now I see this idea that if I play f4, the queen is going to be very lonely on this side. And here knight d4 came. I was initially a little bit scared. I played queen to d7, and trust me, queen to d7 was not my favorite move. I probably could have played queen to f6 and also gotten away with it, and queen to f7. It's all up to debate. Queen d7, and now f4. And I think at this moment, our friend Aron is really getting back in the game. Knight takes, rook takes, but now rook takes pawn. So what I was suggested is pawn takes knight. Now rook takes e5. This was the pivotal moment. Pawn takes e5, and now I have the discovery on the queen. Queen h6, and I think I'm going to cover the chaos in the next video because there's so much to learn from this ending. So I'll see you later.